Hi guys, we are back with another Zoom chat for SA Cricket Magazine. I'm here with colleague Wade Pretorius. Wade, we're going to chat today about our perfect Test 11s that we've picked over the last week or so. And yeah, it's been quite fun to look back at former Proteas and even current guys that we think would be in a perfect Test 11. So yeah, do you want to kick us off and just go with starting at up front with the openers? I see you went with Graham Smith and Gary Kirsten. I kind of felt the same way, that those two guys are most worthy of a selection. I don't think you can look really too far beyond them.
I think Herschel Gibbs might feel a little bit miffed at that. I mean, he was a great player. I mean, I usually look further down my team, which will be posted in the link in this discussion. You'll see that I've got Gibbs at 6 as my sort of bolter. But up front, I had the conundrum, Craig, of going two lefties, Smith and Kirsten. You know, you always want that left-right combination, but I just feel that there was no way I was leaving Gary Kirsten out, and we've both sort of gone with a similar lineup. We've been accused, we've done the same thing for our other publication, SA Rugby Mag. We've been accused of being a little bit too modern in our approach and forgetting guys that, the readmission guys. Daryl Cullinan got a shout in our colleagues Gary Lemke and John Connelly's side, but there weren't too many guys from the early days, as it were, that made claim to the side. I mean, Graham Smith's record was phenomenal. To have an average like that as an opening batsman, I mean, he was an obvious pick. Gary Kirsten, for me, him and Daryl Cullinan always had that race about who was getting more centuries, and I just think Gary Kirsten was just such a hard cricket player, someone who valued his wickets, and Cullinan had that massive issue against Shane Warne. So if you're talking about an all-time side, you throw Shane Warne into the opposition, and Cullinan's gone for 13 or less.
Yeah, I think that was probably the point of difference for me. I mean, I was tempted to go Cullinan as well, but when you think of his struggles against one of the premier Test teams in the world, kind of takes away a little bit from him. But I mean, his record is still very impressive, because he was, such a legend and against all other nations. But that was, of course, his well-known Achilles heel. And then looking at the rest of our batsmen, it was, I mean, pretty simple, I think, in terms of unanimous selections going. You have to pick Amla, you have to pick Cullis, you have to go AB, and those three guys in the middle order are automatic choices, I would think. Yeah,
I mean, when you look, I mean, we ran this as a sort of post isolation onwards. If you open the gates to say any era, I'm not too sure who takes out Amla, Cullis, and AB at 3, 4, and 5. I know, obviously, Graham Pollock, you'd have to put him in there, but there are very few players that will have records that stand up to the class of Amla, Cullis, and AB. AB's, for me, the one there with the weakest record, if I'm allowed to even suggest that AB de Villiers had a flaw in his game. But, he didn't play as many tests as we all would have liked to see just how many hundreds he would have finished on, because he sort of left the test scene at the peak of his powers. Those games against Australians, just absolutely obliterating attacks to all parts. I mean, AB was a batsman who had it all, and Cullis is a great. I mean, he'd walk into any world cricket side. If you don't pick Jacques Cullis, then you honestly don't know what you're talking about, because he is two players in one, and pretty handy in the slips.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much one we can agree on. But I think we're going to fight now over. You suggested I kind of chippered the system a little bit by going with Quinton Dukakis as a standalone batsman at number 6, and it was a bit of a left field selection, whereas obviously you snuck in Gibbs. But for me, I just thought, Quinton's test record is not blowing the lights out, but when you've got that top 5 that I was able to hypothetically select, I just wanted someone to come in with the freedom to be able to play like Quinton does when he's got a foundation. So I'm picturing him coming in at 300 for, just a few wickets down, and he's got license to go wild. For me, that gives him kind of perfect opportunity to come in as a specialist batsman at number 6. And I mean, I think he'd be so destructive there. I think it was just a fun selection rather than going for another guy like Daryl Cullinan or playing Gibbs out of position like you did, picking Gibbs at 6.
Oh, that was a cheap shot, telling me I'm playing Gibbs out of position, and I am, but I'm not playing two wicket keepers, and that's what you're doing. So, I mean, I've gone Gibbs. I think I wrote in my piece about 300 for 4, and in comes Herschel Gibbs. I don't know any team in the world that's going to be able to cope with his shot making ability, his ability against the second new ball. Gibbs is a great player, and I somehow, when we go through our ODI sides in a next Zoom chat, I've somehow left him out of my ODI team. There's method to that madness, but I see what you're saying at 6. You need someone who's going to bat with an increased tempo, and I didn't want to leave Mark Boucher out of my team, but if I'm choosing between what Quinton Dukakis done now and what he's going to do in the next who knows how many years, next decade, I'm gonna say Quinton Dukakis adds way more value with the willow in his hand. And that takes no disrespect to Mark Boucher and his feats, with all the catches, with all the stumpings, with all the nuggety knocks, with sticking around, with he added tremendous value to a world-class lineup. But this is my all-time Proteas side, and I've got Gibbs at 6, Quinny at 7. Let's get stuck into the bowlers. 4 bowlers, no spinner.
Yeah, I think that says a lot, because I really would love to include a spinner in a perfect 11, but I just struggle to find, looking at the stats and records. I mean, there were moments where guys maybe put up their hand. I mean, maybe you go completely left field and you go Paul Adams as a bit of a bolter. But for me, there was no justification to pick a spinner and leave out one of the litany of amazing fast bowlers we've had.
Yeah, look, we somehow conspired to the both of us to choose Kagiso Rabada over Vernon Philander. But when it comes to putting in a spinner, are you gonna choose Paul Adams for that introduction period where he was a complete mystery and bamboozled England, but then his average and strike rate drifted? Or are you going to choose what Rabada has to offer now, Vernon Philander? I mean, there's an argument that Vernon should have been in the side ahead of Kagiso. There's no spinner. We had guys that did jobs. Keshav Maharaj is doing a phenomenal job now, but he's not a threat. He's not a spinner in the mold of Shane Warne, even Stuart McGill, Australia's runner-up spinner, Nathan Lyon even, So we went all out pace. It depends on the wicket, as you would say. But if you've got Donald and Dale Steyn opening your attack with Pollock first change, I don't think you really need a spinner to do a job, because don't forget we've got Callis that can turn the arm over if required. Yeah,
I mean, I wish we could kind of invent a machine that could clone cricketers and then just have 4 or 5 Callises in your team. But kind of my...
Just had a boy. Just had a boy. We've got to wait. We've got to wait 18, 19 years, and then we've got another all-rounder in the mix. If he's got, I don't know, what percentage should we say? 5% of his dad's talent. He's going to be a Protea if he chooses that. Although Jacques might mold him towards the golfing side, knowing how much he likes golf these days. Yeah. But I think, Craig, let's do something quick, and let's choose some bowlers who obviously, I mean, we're not leaving out Steyn, Donald, Pollock. Take Vern out the equation, take Rabada. Let's choose the next crop of fast bowlers. I'm throwing in Brett Schultz, a career ravaged by injury, but a left arm seam option from the earlier days. I think that he fitness treated him better. He would have been a goodie, and maybe someone like Fanie de Villiers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. So you're looking at it like an older generation player. I mean, probably the name that would come just immediately to mind is Fanie. I mean, he was one of my all-time favorite cricketers in that generation, with the likes of Jonty and Hansie and that, there's that legendary highlights package of his where he was taking wickets for fun. I think Fanie probably is a guy who would squeeze in there, but I mean, like you say, it's just not likely when you're looking at a Dale Steyn and Alan Donald, a Sean Pollock. And then for me, the shootout was between Makhaya Tini, Philander, or Rabada. And it was tough to go for Rabada, but I just thought you're not going to get the new ball out of the hands of Pollockstein or Donald, so I went for a youngster who can bring in a bit of enforcing and take the second, come on as a second or third change bowler. That was my justification, but I don't think I think Shorts would be a bit of a bit of a bolter there. If we're looking at old generation,
you're just giving your age away. You didn't spend enough time at St. George's Park as a youngster like I did.
There we go.
Watching him and Merrick Pringle just destroy teams. I mean, that's the thing is, and then that's maybe why our cricket is in the transition period it is now. We look at all these guys; they've all we've gone through. We're doing what Australia did. Probably 10 plus years ago when the wars and those guys all departed the scene, so and you guys come in and they're not, no disrespect again, but they're not world-class superstars like we've had. Graham Smith averaging 50 at the top of the order, Hashim Amla, one of the all-time greats, Callis, 2 players and 1 AB, the list goes on of guys that have left and they've left massive shoes. So thank goodness we've got Boucher in there, someone who did his part in that generation, who can sort of help steady the ship, as it were. But we don't have the next breed of out and out world class superstars. Sure, there's guys that have come on. Aidan Markram is someone that's been spoken about a lot, and I think that if Callis can continue in the batting consultant role, we may see the best out of Markram. Obviously, Rabada's got a bright future. Lungi Ngidi's got fitness struggles, but he's another one that can do a real long-term stint for South Africa and take plenty of wickets. So, we're looking at this team, maybe a few older generation players. We've listed about 3 max players that could try and get into this team across all positions. I mean, it's a straight shootout in the wicketkeeper department, and we've basically got one spot in the batting lineup that we're arguing about potentially, but I think we're both pretty settled on our team. So it'll be interesting to see how the readers engage with this, and to see if there's a few players that maybe our memories have tripped us up a bit and we haven't seen.
Yeah, our memories or our age tripping us up a bit, but we're also doing a World 11, so that's another interesting debate and talking points is trying to obviously there's a few legendary Proteas, but I mean it's also been quite fun looking at whether you pick Rahul Dravid or not and so on. So I mean that's the next series on the website and maybe the next student chat that we can do.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Cool. Cheers.